April 1944. Camp Shanks, New York. The American woman's uniform bewildered the German auxiliary radio operator who had never seen a female soldier treated with such respect. After 2 years transmitting Wehrmacht communications across North Africa, surviving aerial bombardments and hasty retreats, this encounter with an American WAC sergeant represented impossibility made flesh. The American woman spoke with authority, wore a pristine uniform, and carried herself with a confidence reserved only for men in Nazi Germany. This was merely the first of countless cultural shocks awaiting Elfriede Müller and the 173 other Nachrichtenhelferinnen who arrived at Camp Shanks that spring morning. Across American prisoner of war facilities in 1944, approximately 1,121 female German military auxiliaries would confront a reality that contradicted everything Nazi propaganda had taught them about American barbarism and moral decay. They discovered a nation where women held military rank, where female prisoners received private quarters, where cosmetics remained available despite wartime rationing. These simple dignities, privileges that most German women had surrendered to the war effort years earlier, would systematically demolish Nazi gender ideology more effectively than any re-education program. The mathematics of equality were being written in lipstick and nylon, in educational opportunity and workplace respect, revealing an American social flexibility that rendered German women's subordination not noble sacrifice, but unnecessary limitation. What began as disorientation at American gender norms would evolve into complete psychological transformation. The Signal Corps women's capture. The Allied advance through Italy during February 1944 brought approximately 97 German female signal auxiliaries into American custody, adding to the 76 captured during Operation Torch in North Africa. These Nachrichtenhelferinnen, specially trained in radio operations, encryption, and signal intelligence, expected brutal treatment as prisoners. Nazi propaganda had prepared them for American violence against female captives, particularly those who had served in military communications. Instead, within hours of surrender, they encountered female American military personnel. These Women's Army Corps members, who processed and guarded the German women, displayed professionalism that contradicted Nazi stereotypes about Western female degeneracy. According to military records, at the processing facilities in Naples, female American officers supervised personal hygiene arrangements that provided privacy, feminine hygiene products, and cosmetics, items that had vanished from German military provision 2 years earlier. The systematic treatment of female prisoners with dignity began immediately, though its psychological impact would only be understood later. A German Nachrichtenhelferinnen officer later testified to the International Red Cross. "We expected American women to be primitive and immoral. Instead, they were professional, educated, and respected by male officers." This contradiction began our re-examination of everything we had been taught. The transport ships carrying female prisoners across the Atlantic in spring 1944 provided intensive education in American gender equality. These vessels, carrying mixed populations of male and female prisoners, maintained strict segregation between the sexes while providing identical quality provisions to both. Naval records show that female quarters, though separate, matched male accommodations in comfort and space allocation. Most remarkably, documented accounts confirm that female prisoners received small cosmetic kits upon boarding, containing face powder, lipstick, and hand cream. For women who hadn't seen such items since 1942, these simple toiletries in the middle of a global war defied understanding. The question forming in their minds would grow louder over coming months. What kind of nation could afford to treat enemy women better than Germany treated its own? The barracks at Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia housed 87 German Nachrichtenhelferinnen by June 1944, establishing the largest concentration of female German prisoners in America. Unlike the Spartan military accommodations they had known in the Wehrmacht, These women encountered private rooms shared by only 4 occupants, with individual beds rather than bunks. Daily schedules revealed further contradictions to Nazi depictions of American chaos. Military records document that female prisoners followed structured routines: breakfast at 07:00, work assignments from 08:30 to 16:30 with 2 rest periods, dinner at 18:00, followed by free evening hours until lights out at 22:00. This predictable rhythm, punctuated by 3 full meals daily, contradicted the erratic schedules and food shortages these women had experienced in the German military's final years. German female auxiliaries performed clerical work, laundry duties and kitchen tasks within the camp system, earning the standard POW wage of 80 cents daily. Unlike their male counterparts often assigned to agricultural labor, these women worked primarily indoors, in climate-controlled environments. This gender distinction reflected American cultural norms rather than military necessity. At Fort Oglethorpe, prisoner Hilda Schmidt recorded in her secretly maintained diary, "American women officers insist we not perform unladylike labor. This protection of femininity during wartime seems extravagant, yet deeply appealing." Her observation captured the growing recognition that American gender roles, while different from German traditions, offered unexpected advantages. The campgrounds provided recreational spaces exclusively for female prisoners: a volleyball court, a garden area, and a day room with magazines and books. Movement within designated areas remained unrestricted during non-working hours, with American female guards maintaining a less visible presence than in male facilities. Quartermaster records from Fort Oglethorpe show that by August 1944, female prisoners received weekly movie privileges, beauty parlor access for hairstyling, and musical instruments for evening entertainment. These luxuries, standard in American women's military facilities, represented impossible extravagance to women accustomed to the austerity of German military service. Most significantly, the camp exchanges, PX, offered female-specific items that had vanished from German civilian markets years earlier. According to supply records from 1944, these shops stocked cosmetics, face powder for 15 cents, lipstick for 25 cents, women's toiletries, stockings, when available, fashion magazines, hair accessories, and feminine hygiene products. German women who had used ersatz soap and paper bandages for menstruation discovered American Tampax products, commercial sanitary napkins, and real soap, small dignities that emphasized the gap between societies. Camp libraries circulated American women's magazines, Ladies' Home Journal, McCall's, Woman's Home Companion, providing windows into civilian American life. These publications, with their advertisements for household appliances, ready-made clothing, and labor-saving devices, revealed American domestic standards that contradicted Nazi propaganda about American women's supposedly primitive living conditions. The fashion spreads particularly captivated the German women, who had endured strict rationing of fabric and standardized clothing designs since 1940. Documented interviews with camp librarians noted that fashion magazines frequently disappeared, despite prohibitions against removing materials. By December 1944, military authorities recorded the first formal requests from German female prisoners to remain in America after the war. Camp Commander Captain Eleanor Mitchell documented 7 such petitions at Fort Oglethorpe alone. Her report noted, "These women express particular admiration for American gender relations, economic opportunities for females, and material standards. Several have explicitly stated they cannot return to Germany's ruins after experiencing American plenty." What began as reluctant adjustment to captivity was transforming into deliberate preference for American life, a development that would soon create unprecedented challenges for military authorities as fraternization increased and romantic complications emerged. Military regulations explicitly forbade romantic contact between American personnel and German prisoners. Yet by January 1945, camp commanders reported increasing difficulties enforcing these boundaries. At Fort Oglethorpe, 3 male guards received disciplinary transfers after passing personal notes to female prisoners. Camp Aliceville documented 5 incidents of American medical personnel spending unnecessary time conversing with German Nachrichtenhelferinnen patients. These interactions, though prohibited on paper, proved impossible to prevent entirely, as daily operations required regular contact between captives and captors. Army regulations permitted supervised social gatherings intended to maintain morale among prisoners. These authorized events, typically featuring music and refreshments, created sanctioned spaces where German women observed American social customs firsthand. Military records from February 1945 document a Valentine's Day dance at Fort Oglethorpe, where 76 female German prisoners participated in a closely monitored event with WAC personnel serving as hosts. Camp commander reports noted, German prisoners appeared particularly interested in American dance styles, informal male-female interactions, and the casual authority displayed by female officers organizing the gathering. What began as cultural observation increasingly transformed into admiration and imitation. Censored letters reveal the psychological shifts occurring among these women. Correspondence analysis from Army intelligence shows evolving language patterns. In June 1944, typical letters home emphasized captivity's hardships and expressed loyalty to German ideals. By March 1945, the same women's letters contained phrases like, Americans treat women as equals in surprising ways, work opportunities here seem unlimited for females, and the relationship between American men and women appears based on mutual respect rather than hierarchy. These observations, though seemingly innocuous, represented fundamental challenges to Nazi gender ideology that positioned women primarily as mothers and homemakers subordinate to male authority. The proximity of male POW camps created additional complications. At Fort McClellan, Alabama, where female prisoners worked in the camp hospital alongside male German medical POWs, authorities documented 17 romantic relationships developing by April 1945. Camp Commander Major William Hensley reported, despite segregated quarters and supervised work conditions, these attachments form through shared language, culture, and experience of captivity. His report recommended increased restrictions, yet acknowledged the practical impossibility of completely preventing such connections in a work environment requiring daily collaboration. Marriage applications first appeared in official records in March 1945. 3 female prisoners at Fort Oglethorpe submitted formal requests to marry American servicemen they had met through their work assignments. Military authorities uniformly rejected these petitions, citing regulations prohibiting such unions during active hostilities. Yet these official denials merely delayed rather than prevented the growing romantic entanglements. By war's end, Army records would document 131 formal marriage applications between German female prisoners and American personnel. Ideological divisions among the women intensified as romantic attachments grew. At Fort Oglethorpe, prisoner groups increasingly segregated between those maintaining Nazi loyalty and those embracing American customs. Camp intelligence officers reported heated arguments erupting in female barracks, with Nazi adherents accusing Americanized prisoners of betrayal. These divisions sometimes turned physical. Military police records show 7 documented physical altercations between female German prisoners between January and May 1945. One incident report described finding a prisoner with her hair forcibly cut short by barracks mates who deemed her too interested in American hairstyles and men. The most significant petition appeared in April 1945, when 23 Nachrichtenhelferinnen at Fort Oglethorpe submitted a collective formal request for permanent residency in America after the war. Their unprecedented document stated simply, "We have discovered a better life here than any possible future in Germany. We want to stay." News of Germany's systematic destruction reached female prisoners through multiple channels by spring 1945. Red Cross reports delivered devastating inventories of bombed cities. Allied newspapers, permitted in camps with certain restrictions, displayed photographs of Dresden's ruins and Berlin's devastation. Letters from home, heavily censored yet still revealing, described food shortages, displaced families, and vanished neighborhoods. This information transformed the psychological landscape for German women who had lived in relative comfort as American captives. Prisoner Maria Kraus wrote in her diary on April 14, 1945, "The strangest feeling overwhelms me. Guilt for my warm bed and 3 meals while mother scavenges in Bremen's rubble. Yet also gratitude that fate placed me here rather than there. Does this make me a traitor to my homeland?" This paradoxical experience, prisoners living better than free citizens, intensified when military authorities permitted German captives to send packages home. Camp commissary records show that between March and December 1945, Nachrichtenhelferinnen at Fort Oglethorpe purchased and shipped 1,273 care packages to Germany. These boxes, typically containing coffee, chocolate, soap, nylon stockings and cigarettes, represented treasures in devastated Germany. Military postal records document an average package value of £4.80, approximately 6 days' wages for a prisoner. A typical box contained items unavailable at any price in post-war Germany. £1 coffee, 5 chocolate bars, 2 pairs nylon stockings, 3 bars soap, and 2 packs cigarettes. The psychological impact of these packages worked in both directions. Recipients in Germany glimpsed American abundance through these gifts, while sender prisoners confronted the stark contrast between their captivity and Germany's freedom. Ideological divisions hardened as Germany's collapse became inevitable. Camp intelligence reports categorized female prisoners into 3 distinct groups. Approximately 15% remained dedicated National Socialists, 40% maintained neutral or apolitical positions, while 45% openly embraced American values and expressed desire to remain. These divisions manifested physically in dining hall seating arrangements, work group preferences, and recreational activities. At Fort McClellan, the camp commander reported that Nazi loyalists occupied specific tables, wore traditional hairstyles, and refused to use American products from the PX, while Americanized prisoners adopted fashion trends from magazines, used cosmetics openly, and cultivated friendships with American personnel. Military intelligence psychological assessments documented this ideological transformation with clinical precision. A May 1945 report analyzed changes in 50 Nachrichtenhelferinnen over 9 months of captivity. Initial interviews showed 82% expressing strong German national identity and skepticism toward American society. Final interviews found only 31% maintaining these views, with 57% expressing admiration for American systems and 12% declaring intention to seek American citizenship if permitted. The report concluded, "Exposure to American material conditions, gender relations, and work opportunities has fundamentally altered these women's perceptions more effectively than any propaganda program could achieve." Re-education programs, formally established in American POW camps by fall 1944, found particularly receptive audiences among female prisoners. Educational records show 73% of eligible Nachrichtenhelferinnen voluntarily enrolled in American history and government classes, compared to 41% of male prisoners. At Fort Oglethorpe, the camp library reported that books about American women's colleges, female professional opportunities, and women's suffrage were consistently checked out. Camp librarian reports noted, "These women appear particularly interested in American female achievement stories. Amelia Earhart, Eleanor Roosevelt, and similar figures received special attention." Work integration accelerated this transformation. By summer 1945, with the European War concluded, Labor shortages prompted military authorities to expand female prisoners' work assignments beyond camp boundaries. At Fort McClellan, 27 Nachrichtenhelferinnen received clearance to work in the base hospital alongside American nurses, earning full POW wages. Health records revealed measurable differences between female prisoners and their counterparts in Germany. American military medical examinations in August 1945 documented female prisoners averaging 9.7 pounds heavier than their arrival weight, with improved nutritional markers across all measured categories. Simultaneously, civilian women in the American occupation zone of Germany averaged 17.4 pounds below standard weight, with widespread nutritional deficiencies. As repatriation planning began in earnest, military authorities confronted an unprecedented situation: prisoners actively resisting return to their homeland. Germany's unconditional surrender on May 8, 1945, transformed prisoners' legal status from enemies to displaced nationals awaiting repatriation. Military documents reveal that 76% of male German prisoners expressed immediate desire for homeland return, contrasting sharply with female auxiliaries, among whom only 39% welcomed prompt repatriation. At Fort Oglethorpe, the morning announcement of Germany's surrender produced diametrically opposed responses between barracks. Witnesses reported Nazi loyalists weeping openly, while others celebrated privately. Camp commander reports noted unusual silence among most female prisoners who recognized their American sojourn now had a definitive endpoint. The Potsdam Agreement of August 1945 established repatriation protocols requiring all German military personnel to return to their respective occupation zones. This diplomatic framework, negotiated at the highest governmental levels, made no provision for individual prisoner preferences. Military administrators faced implementing an inflexible policy increasingly at odds with humanitarian considerations. Captain Eleanor Mitchell, overseeing female prisoner repatriation processing at Fort Oglethorpe, documented her dilemma in an August 17th memorandum. These women present compelling cases against return to a destroyed homeland where food shortages persist, and denazification creates potential persecution for former military personnel. Yet I have no discretionary authority to exempt individuals from mandatory repatriation. Creative resistance strategies emerged as departure dates approached. Military records document 37 female prisoners reporting mysterious medical conditions requiring treatment at American facilities. Hospital admission records show diagnoses ranging from suspected tuberculosis to undiagnosed abdominal pain, conditions difficult to verify yet sufficient to delay transport. At Fort McClellan, 6 Nachrichtenhelferinnen simply disappeared during their final work assignments, temporarily evading military police before eventual recapture. Most commonly, women pursued legal channels to remain, filing 173 documented marriage applications to American citizens between June and December 1945. Maria Berger, formerly stationed at Fort Oglethorpe, secured perhaps the most creative delay through pregnancy. Military medical records confirm her condition in September 1945, with the American father identified as a technical sergeant from the base engineering department. Her case file notes, repatriation postponed until after delivery to ensure proper medical care. This 9-month reprieve became a template, with medical records showing 11 pregnancies among Nachrichtenhelferinnen in late 1945, delaying their repatriation until 1946. Statistical evidence from military records reveals the scale of resistance to repatriation. Among the 1,221 female German military auxiliaries held in American captivity, 649, 53.2%, filed formal petitions requesting permission to remain in the United States. These applications cited various justifications. 218 claimed engagement or romantic attachment to American citizens. 164 referenced employment offers from American businesses. 103 expressed political fear of returning to a divided Germany, while 164 simply stated preference for American society and opportunities. Military authorities rejected 96.3% of these applications, approving only 24 cases involving verifiable marriages to American citizens completed before repatriation orders were issued. The competing pressures of family loyalty versus newfound American attachments created profound psychological stress. Censored letters reveal this tension. Elfriede Müller wrote to her mother in Munich, "How can I choose between you and the future I've glimpsed here? Germany offers nothing but ruins and hunger, yet you remain there among them. My heart divides between duty to family and hope for something better." This sentiment appeared repeatedly in communications, with 63% of female prisoners expressing similar conflicts in their final letters from America. Military police records document escalating desperation as departure dates approached. At Fort McClellan, 3 women attempted suicide when final repatriation orders arrived. Camp Shanks reported 4 Nachrichtenhelferinnen refusing to board transport ships, requiring physical escort by military police. Most poignantly, ships' manifests record 37 women listed as non-ambulatory due to emotional distress, transported on stretchers after emotional collapse at departure. The first repatriation transport carrying female prisoners departed New York Harbor on October 12, 1945, bearing away women who had experienced American society for approximately 18 months, long enough to fundamentally transform their worldview, yet not long enough to secure permission to stay. The Liberty ship SS James Monroe departed Newport News on February 12, 1946, carrying the final group of 57 female German auxiliaries toward a homeland many no longer considered home. Military police records document that 19 women required sedation before boarding, having physically resisted transfer from Fort Oglethorpe to the departure port. Ship's manifest notations indicate that 31 of these women had secured American sponsors willing to support immigration applications, yet military regulations prohibited consideration of these arrangements. Upon arrival in Bremen, these women encountered a Germany transformed beyond recognition, 75% of urban housing destroyed, food rations fixed at 1,100 calories daily, unemployment exceeding 70%, and American occupation forces now governing the very society they had once defended. Immigration records reveal the determination of former captives to return to America. Between 1947 and 1952, immigration authorities documented 296 German women formerly held as military prisoners successfully re-entering the United States through various channels. The most common pathway utilized the War Brides Act of 1945, with 173 women marrying American servicemen stationed in occupied Germany, often men they had met during captivity who later deployed to occupation duty. Others secured employment-based visas through the Displaced Persons Act of 1948, with 87 former Nachrichtenhelferinnen receiving sponsorship from American businesses, particularly those requiring German language skills. Most remarkably, 36 women entered through student visas, having secured admission to American universities, despite significant financial and logistical obstacles. The marriages formed between German auxiliaries and American personnel demonstrated remarkable durability. Census records from 1960 show that 82% of these unions remained intact, significantly higher than the 67% stability rate for other war bride marriages from the same period. Sociological studies conducted in the 1970s examined this phenomenon, with researchers concluding that shared wartime experiences, combined with the women's deliberate choice of American society, created stronger foundational bonds. These families established themselves predominantly in eastern states, with particular concentrations in New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, often near the very military installations where they first encountered one another. Those compelled to remain in Germany frequently became unofficial cultural ambassadors. Denazification interviews conducted by American occupation authorities reveal former prisoners repeatedly serving as interpreters between occupiers and local populations. Their familiarity with American customs, slang, and expectations proved invaluable during reconstruction efforts. In American occupation zones, military government records identify 87 former Nachrichtenhelferinnen employed directly by occupation authorities by 1948, with performance reviews consistently citing their unique understanding of American administrative expectations as particularly valuable. The comprehensive statistical record reveals the extraordinary impact of this experience. Among the 1,221 German female auxiliaries held in American captivity between 1943 and 1946, post-war tracking identified the following outcomes by 1955. 296, 24.2%, successfully immigrated to the United States through various legal channels. 437, 35.8%, attempted immigration but failed due to quota restrictions or other barriers. 173, 14.2%, married Americans stationed in occupied Germany. 248, 20.3%, integrated into West German society with documented continued contact with American friends. 67, 5.5%, relocated to East Germany or refused further contact with American authorities. Historians recognize this remarkable case study in cross-cultural transformation. Dr. Elizabeth Robinson, researching post-war German-American relations at Columbia University in 1968, concluded, "These women represent perhaps the most successful example of cultural exchange in the entire prisoner of war program. Their transformation from Nazi auxiliaries to enthusiastic Americanophiles occurred not through propaganda, but through direct experience with American society's material conditions and gender relationships." April 1994, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Elfriede Müller Thompson celebrated her 50th wedding anniversary surrounded by 3 generations of American descendants. The former Nachrichtenhelferin, who once transmitted Wehrmacht orders across North Africa, had spent the intervening half-century building an American life. When interviewed for a documentary on German-American relations, she displayed a small wooden box containing carefully preserved items, her German auxiliary service badge, an American chocolate bar wrapper from 1944, and her Fort Oglethorpe prisoner identification card. "These objects tell my life story," she explained. "I arrived as Germany's loyal daughter and became America's grateful immigrant." These women's experiences reveal a profound historical irony. Sent to America as prisoners, they discovered a society that offered opportunities surpassing anything available in their homeland. Their story represents history's strangest immigration narrative. Captives transformed into ardent applicants, enemies into advocates, prisoners who fought not for freedom from America, but freedom to remain. Their journey from Nachrichtenhelferinnen to American immigrants demonstrates how direct experience can dismantle even the most deeply entrenched ideological barriers. These reluctant visitors became America's most determined aspiring citizens, transformed by witnessing a society that treated even enemies with a dignity that their own nation had ceased providing its loyal supporters.